Bernard, the Harvard Business Review has said that the Balanced Scorecard has been the most influential development over the last 75 years. What is the Balanced Scorecard?
The Balanced Scorecard is a strategic performance management framework that allows organizations to define their strategic priorities and then design indicators and measures to monitor how well they are executing their strategy.
Thank you. Where did the idea come from?
The idea was developed by Dr. Robert Kaplan and Dr. David Norton. Robert Kaplan is a Harvard Business School professor and David Norton a consultant, and they did a project in the early 1990s to come up with better ways of measuring your performance. And as part of this project, they got a number of companies together, and one of those companies had almost a balanced scorecard. And they thought this is a good idea to have your measures in a number of different areas of your business to cover all the important parts. And this is how the whole concept started.
Is the Balanced Scorecard something for the shop floor or the boardroom? Where does it sit in the organisation?
It sits at the very, very top of the organisation, where you define what this company is all about and which direction you're going into, and then you can use this to direct your business units and anyone within the organisation to make sure they are all aligned with the top level objectives.
And if I was a member of the organisation, how would I recognise the Balanced Scorecard?
The Balanced Scorecard basically has identified the most intuitive components of a company's strategy. It all starts with your vision, saying where do I want to take this organization in, let's say, 2 or 5 years' time, where I want to get to. And from there, you then define objectives in 4 key perspectives, starting off with your financial perspective, where you say, what is it we want to deliver in terms of profits? Where do we want to grow our revenues to? What sort of value do you want to return to our shareholders? To what level do we need to cut our costs? So this is where you articulate these are the financial objectives this business is all about. In order to deliver any financial objectives, you need to deliver to your customers. This is the second perspective, where we would articulate objectives around maybe launching a new product into a new market, maybe increasing the satisfaction of the service and products we deliver. Maybe it is about increasing our brand awareness and maybe growing market share in certain elements. So anything you have now articulated in your customer perspective will help you deliver your financial objectives. In order to do well in what you do for your customers, you need to sit down and identify what is it we as an organization have to be really good at. What are the vital few things we have to excel at as an organization? They are called your internal processes or your operational priorities. And here you might want to think about if you're a manufacturing plant, you want to optimize and you might want to make it lean. Maybe it's around developing customer relationships. Anything you do as an organization that is core, this has to be articulated in this perspective. And finally, you want to look at your intangible enablers of your business. They are the things, if you get them right, if you have the right people, the right IT infrastructure, the right organizational culture, all of this will then help you to do the right things internally, which will then help you to deliver to your customers, which will then help you to deliver your financial objectives. And in the last one, the learning and growth perspective is probably the least understood perspective of all of them. And Kaplan and Norton have put a bit more meat on this perspective. So they said there are 3 components in this. They are your human capital, so anything related to your people, your employees. Are they trained? Have they got the capabilities they need? Are they engaged to the right level? As well as your information capital, which refers to any IT systems, any information and data you might hold as an organization, as well as your organizational capital, things like your organizational culture and things like your leadership and leadership approach.
Thank you, Bernard. You've described 4 perspectives. Does every organisation just have 4 perspectives, or have things developed?
Again, a very good question, and things have developed, and the 4 perspectives are not straitjackets. So organizations have complete freedom to design their own perspectives, and in many cases it makes sense, because for you as an organization, the environment and the social impact of what you do might be really important. So you would add this perspective to your scorecard. Other organizations would separate out some of the perspectives, saying people are so important, we don't just want to have this as a learning growth perspective, we add a people element to this. So you have all the freedom in the world to make the perspectives as relevant to your organization as you need to. And if this means having 3 perspectives, 5, 6 perspectives, this is all okay, as long as the logic of the business warrants those perspectives.
Thank you. I note that you put the financial perspective was the first one you mentioned, but there are some organisations, and I'm thinking here of government or the third, the charity area, where perhaps finance isn't the main driver of the business. It's delivering a service or meeting a need. Is the balanced scorecard relevant to that sort of organisation?
Very good question, and it is, but we need to watch out what perspectives we include. And one of the most important evolutions in the scorecard has been that it has changed from this 4-box display to a strategy map display, where you basically say we now put these 4 perspectives in a hierarchy. We say we're here to make money as a commercial business. This has to be driven by our financial objectives. This has to be driven by our internal process objectives, underpinned by our learning and growth perspectives. And this is one of the most important evolutions in the scorecard. Interestingly now, your question, how is this relevant? Because if I think about a public sector organization or a not-for-profit organization, they're not here to make money. This is not their most important top perspective. And this is where organizations have to think about what sort of business they are in. And quite often, as you know from your own experience, having implemented this in government organizations, is you are given a budget, and very often then the financial perspective is almost moved to the bottom, where you say these are our resources we need to invest into our business to then deliver to our stakeholders. So very often the top perspective in a government organization would be something like a stakeholder or community perspective, where you broaden the customer element out to capture the reason why they exist and their outcome deliverables.
The balanced scorecard, you tell me, can be used across a range of organisations, but are there common benefits?
Very much so. And I would say the most important benefit is to have agreement on your strategic priorities. Most organizations, especially once you go further into the organization, people don't really understand the strategic priorities. They might have a strategic plan that runs into 30, 40 pages that no one ever reads, really. So having this all on one page on your dashboard or your strategy map is really powerful. It helps you to communicate your strategy. It helps you to agree the strategic priorities and understand how they're all interlinked. That's quite important. And it then also means, because you have a clearly specified set of objectives, it helps you to identify your indicators and your management information. So it usually improves your management information and your management reporting. And finally, it helps you to align the organization, because once you have a clear set of objectives at the top, you can then make sure that all objectives of your business units are all aligned with this top-level balanced scorecard or strategy map, which then means that everyone's working towards the same goal.
From your experience, what would be your advice about avoiding pitfalls?
What is really important is that you get the management buy-in to all of this. So unless you have senior level commitment and buy-in to designing a strategy map and balanced scorecard, then it will not work. What you then do is you need to make sure that you design a balanced scorecard that reflects your business and not just copying a scorecard from someone else, which is very tempting. But taking the oil industry, for example, where I've worked with a number of different major oil companies, their scorecards look very different. In the same way for banks, where I've worked with several of the top banks in the world, and if you compare the scorecard for HSBC and compare this to Barclays or to Citibank, they all have very different strategic objectives because they are facing different priorities. So the balanced scorecard has to reflect your unique business at this point in time. A number of other challenges, some of them I touched upon already. Designing indicators. Very often we just measure and report everything that walks and moves and very little that actually matters. So one of the things that we have to make sure is that the indicators we collect are really connected to our strategic objectives and our information needs.
What sort of timescales would you expect for implementing a balanced scorecard?
The very top level, which is by far the most important level, can actually be done very quickly, as long as you have the key people involved and available. When we get involved in designing scorecards, we can do this in a week, where you get from a number of initial meetings and sessions to a draft balanced scorecard in terms of your strategic objectives in a week. We would then have probably another week to come up with the high-level key performance questions and key performance indicators. So if everyone is available and you get their commitment, within a 2-week time frame, you can have a balanced scorecard. And once this is then agreed and implemented, you can then cascade this, and you can probably even speed the process up for some of the cascades.
Where can I find out more?
There's a huge amount of white papers and actual case studies and other material, research material available on our website, which is www.ap-institute.com. And there you can download white papers such as what are the pitfalls of implementing a balanced scorecard, what is a modern balanced scorecard, what are key performance questions, how to design indicators, and lots of case studies from some of the world's leading companies and government organizations and how they have actually done this in practice.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.